Let me ask you this, Paul, because there's a common discussion right now about whether we will see a giant breakdown because things are so high. Like you're either going to keep going up for forever in a great melt up where just inflation pushes everything up forever, or you hit a breaking point and it collapses. Of those two scenarios, do you have one that seems more likely in your mind?
Both. I
Both.
think different sectors will experience different outcomes.
And what sectors do you see most probable to see the melt up versus the meltdown?
I see, depending on what happens in the world in terms of the Middle East conflict, I see oil going through the roof because as much as I like seeing Iran being pushed into a corner, once you push them into a small enough corner, they're out there. They could do things that would just, close the Strait of Hormuz, bomb Saudi oil fields. I mean, who knows what the hell they would do? Sure. I mean, you've got a crazy person, running that country, and he's an older crazy person that wants a legacy, and you unless you can peer into his mind, you have no idea what he's going to do. Mm-hmm. So, oil stocks are really, really, really cheap, and if you look at their books, most of them are profitable even at $40 oil. So that's what I'm looking forward to in terms of it could go either way.
Okay.
But healthcare stocks, I think they're going to get crushed even more from here, because I think RFK is going to get confirmed as the health guy. And you're going to see some wild stuff go on. I mean, who knows? As the banks, a mismanaged bank is quite capable of going to zero in this environment. I mean, it's just, the real estate sector the commercial real estate sector violates my number one rule in life, is that hope is not a business plan. Right? I mean, it's like, how on earth can you be firing a whole bunch of tech people over and over and over again every day, and having people still work from home, and having Amazon and all these behemoths, downsizing? What's going to happen to all these buildings that they occupied, that they no longer will have leases for? I mean, it's like, and the banks, people don't look at this. The banks are on the hook for all this crap. All right. It's not like you have a personal loan on these things. I mean, the banks have collateral, and if the collateral is the building itself, the banks have I mean, what are they going to do with them? And that's, so that's another thing I wouldn't touch. And,
are you expecting? I'm really curious to hear what I've thought about this a lot, but so many people are talking about that commercial collapse in real estate. What impact do you see on the like individual real estate market when it comes to just like residential side versus the commercial?
Well, it's very geography oriented. All right. The mispricing of houses in major cities is crazy. And it's like, if you go to rural areas in the middle of the country, it's not crazy at all. There are actually some pretty good deals out there if you want to live there. The problem is, if you keep on having inflation, and it looks like we're going to, and interest rates don't come down, and I don't see how they can in this environment. The market's telling you they're not coming down. You look at the bond market, and it's just doing the exact opposite of what the Fed is doing.
Absolutely.
If home affordability, at some point in time, it's like a war between the people that are putting their houses up for sale and the people that are the buyers. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a house next door to me that was on the market for 3 months. The lady wanted $750,000 for it. And 2 years ago, the house was worth maybe 400,000. And she's had 3 people try and buy her house, and all 3 couldn't qualify for a loan. And it wasn't even close. I mean, it just wasn't even close. The banks are not stupid. All right. They got destroyed in 2009. And they have, I hate to say this, I never thought they have learned their lesson. All right. They're not going to let, yes.
Do you?
Like in 2009, your dog could have gotten a mortgage.
Yeah, that's
right?
True. Yeah.
I mean, you know, I know your dog may have died, but your new dog is not going to get a mortgage. All right? It's just not going to happen. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, and I bought my house in 2000. I moved here in 2009 to the Vegas area, actually Henderson, and that was in February. I lived in LA for like 50 years, and every year the traffic got worse. Every single year. Last place I lived was in Fullerton, which is about 11 miles from the Commerce Club. And I got up on a Tuesday in February, Tuesday night at midnight, and I said, I'm going to go play poker. So I got in my car at midnight, and I got to the Commerce Club 11 miles away at 2:15 in the morning. And I looked around and I said, where are all these idiots going? What is going on here? Where maybe there's an accident. Nope, no accident. So I played my session. I came home. I gave my wife a list of 5 cities. I said, here, pick one. We're moving. All right. And turned out her best friend lived in Vegas. So she says, I want to go here. And I said, okay. So I sent her to Vegas to go find the house. She must have looked at 50 to 100 houses. Everyone was trashed. You know, the walls ripped out, you know, the wiring, you know, the toilets full of cement because people were pissed off. And it's amazing. And they had a law out here in Vegas, which I didn't know, that if a house does not have a sink and an oven, it is deemed unlivable. So a lot of the times they pulled the oven out and sold the metal. All right. So the house was for sale, but you couldn't buy it because it was illegal to buy it. So your choices were, you could put in the sink in the oven and pay for that. Yeah. Then the house, and you could buy it, but then so could everybody else. All right. So that was not an option. Yeah. So finally, after a month, we found a guy that had a house that he paid $950 for, and I bought it for $305. And he said, thank you. Wow. Thank you very much. All right. Wow. And that to me was probably the most shocking thing I've seen in the real estate industry on a personal level. Yeah. And I don't know if we're going there again, but I don't see any argument to where we're not going to get there. All right?
Well, because once the commercial side begins a real breakdown and stuff is getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper on that side, there's a lot of income attached to all of those, right? That then transfers into the residential side to where people are going to be, if that was, you know, if I'm retired and that's my income is, hey, I've got like 3 commercial buildings and all of a sudden I owe on all, or maybe I don't know, but I have no income and I can't even like keep the lights on at those buildings. Now I'm forced to sell into this, take a loss. Now I have no income. Now maybe I need to downsize my house. You know, like I think that cascade effect can hit the residential side, but I'm not an expert. It's just my 2 cents.
You're right on. Most older people want to downsize. Mm-hmm. The problem is the older people have mortgages between 2% and 3% on the houses that they own.
It's
right?
A loss to downsize.
So they sell their big house to buy a small house. Their mortgage is higher.
Yeah.
On the small house than it would be on the big house, and most of the time they don't even have a mortgage on the big house.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You know, they may have paid it off. So you've got no houses on the market on the mid-range to upper end. And you've got all these people that are trying to buy a house they can afford on the lower end.
Yeah.
And turns out the lower end, they can't afford to buy where the lower end is.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I don't drive too good. If I was a passenger, I would not get in my car. And so even though it's only like 12 12 miles from my house to South Point, where I play. I was looking at buying a condominium right near South Point, and it turns out, I mean, they're so overpriced. It's crazy. You know, they're like $350 a foot for, you know, an 800-foot condominium. And I just sat there and I said, oh my God, that's terrible. And then there's a $250 a month association fee. All right. I mean, it's like, you know, who's going to buy this? I mean, I don't know, you know, I know it's not me. So the real estate market is really out of whack.
Tom, in Canada, speaking of all the real estate stuff, Canada basically looked at our real estate prices and said, here, hold my beer, eh? Did they not?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if this website still exists, but there's a website, used to be one, what might still exist, called Crack Shack or Mansion. I don't know if you ever heard of this website.
No, I don't know what this is.
But it's, okay, so they have pictures of houses.
Okay. And
you have to decide whether or not this is an actual crack shack. So like literally like crack people live there. Yeah. Or whether it's $1 million+ house in Vancouver, British Columbia.
Okay.
And I think there on the first, there's Crack Shack or Mansion 1 and there's Crack Shack or Mansion 2. Mm-hmm. And I think there was like 20 or 25 houses, and I was right like 63% of the time or something. like honestly, like these because people are buying, like the prices in major Canadian cities are absolutely ludicrous because we didn't have 2008. It didn't really happen to Canadian real estate. So it just kind of flatlined for a bit, but didn't really go down. And then it just started moving up again. And then, over COVID, it started going up even more. So like houses amazing houses you can get in the United States, you get pieces of junk here for basically the same price. It's just it's horrible.
Do you know what the Canadian, I've never taken the time to look, but do you know what your like annual inflation rate is up there?
The actual inflation rate or the posted inflation rate?
Either one.
It's about this. It's usually about the same as the U.S., but it's about as deceptive as the U.S. one.
Okay,
so our government is about as deceptive as the U.S. government when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Right. When they're like, oh, it's only 3%, but it's like 15.
Yeah. It's like, but that's because yachts have only gone up 1% this year. It's like, I don't own a yacht. Right?